You were acted on aggressively?
Just like if you would, there were women that were in Chicago, New York, and LA, obviously in San Francisco, but there weren't that many women touring because that was before cell phones, that was before the internet. Right. So when you toured, it was really scary. It's not
you could die.
Yeah, it's not like today, where everything's convenient. All that you can get money out of the bank. Then there was no ATM cards.
Oh man,
what? Yeah. Was there ATMs?
There were no ATMs.
Oh,
yeah. That was in the beginning of it. Wow. And so, there would be ATMs maybe here in LA, but in the middle of the country, there is no ATMs, and it was a lot harder to tour. So very few women toured. I know when I started doing comedy in Colorado, the women that I collectively remember touring was Judy Tenuta.
Oh, yeah.
A woman named Diane Ford, which no one knows of now, which is a shame. And there were very few women because it was kind of frightening.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I just watched the Ted Bundy thing on Netflix. I think about that. Women face that on the road all the time.
Oh, my God.
If you were touring, I bet that you would have been in prime Ted Bundy territory.
Oh, dude, I grew up a little bit in Colorado where Ted Bundy escaped from the Aspen jail a couple of times. Yeah, that was like pretty scary shit.
Oh, my
gosh. As a kid, like what?
Dang.
Yeah.
I know. And Jess, you were just... Did you feel any moments of being afraid? I know you and Rosalie, you guys were like driving through Texas and Alabama, like all through the South. Obviously it's not as dangerous as it was, when you didn't have cell phones and stuff like that,
right? To
help. But like, did you find?
You always have to keep your wits about you. But I felt pretty safe. You just have to be smart about it.
Right.
Anytime traveling at night, you have to be careful stopping at wherever you're stopping.
Yeah.
You just have to be careful. Absolutely. But no, I felt I'm not a typical stripper, hot looking little
old woman. Is that what the next word?
Oh my goodness. Oh man.
Cause I think I look a little more manly. Like I remember we stopped at one hotel and this guy at breakfast, he's like, you in that pilot? You driving the pilot? I was like, what? He's like, you're driving that pilot out there, right? I was like, what are you talking about? No. He's like, you're not driving that pilot truck out there? I said, no, I'm a comedian.
Right.
I'm not a truck driver staying here.
Oh my goodness.
That's hilarious.
That's so funny, man. Do you get how do you feel like guys treat you at the store? Do you feel like it's a boys club, or do you feel like you're in, like, you know what I mean? Like you're a part of it?
Oh, sometimes you have to check some of them. You just have to check them and be like, look, you're not going to talk to me that way.
Right.
But I think that's with anybody too.
Is it more the ranking there? Is it like because you've been there longer? Is it like seniority, or is it more like?
There's a little bit of that amongst ourselves and how we divvy things up.
Okay.
But I don't think it really matters as much to management or Adam or anything like that.
Right. Yeah.
It is an interesting thing to see and compare of how comedy was and the guys that were the door guy back in the day when I started at the Comedy Store. And, Mark Maron was a door guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Carlos Mencia was a door guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's an interesting...
Jim
Carrey. That was before my time, even because he hit it out of the park very, very young. Right. He was doing stand up then at the store, but he wasn't a door guy. Mm-hmm. But he was like the small generation ahead of me.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it's an interesting thing to see how everyone turned out also.
Right,
not just the people that are famous, because everyone that started out, not everyone went on to be obviously a famous comedian, but a lot of people went on to be big writers and big directors. And it's interesting to see, like Judd Apatow, back in the day, and I just said this to him in Montreal, but back in the day, he would always tag after like Chandling and all that. And, at the store, it was still a nest of snakes, so everyone would be like, oh, Judd, look at him go kiss ass. And now as a person that's been through it, I'm all like, no. He stood next to the people he wanted to be like.
Right.
That's what you have to do. And
absolutely.
And full circle, everybody's mad at him again.
Right. They're mad at Judd Apatow?
Yeah.
Why? What
You
happened?
didn't know that?
No.
What did he do?
No.
Everybody's mad because he went out and went off on Louis C.K.
Oh, he went off on him about him touching or
said
harassing women?
The set that he did that got leaked.
Oh, right.
So everybody was mad.
Judd Apatow's set got leaked about...
No, Louis' set got leaked about the Parkland kids and all that.
And
that
Judd,
were
murdered, I guess,
yeah.
would you say condemned it?
He got, But here's my question about the Louis thing is, how long are we going to be mad at him?
Right, right.
If we can just say, you know what? 3 years. Go fuck off for 3 years. And then, And then
hasn't it been? How long has it been?
It's only been like...
He lost
like a year. It's been a year.
It's been a year. He lost his show. He's is there
not been touring or anything like that?
He's not going to do it again. You know what I mean? Everyone's watching him.
I don't think that he's that type to do it again. And I think he knew, he had a creepy thing that he liked to do. He knew that. Mm-hmm. He was putting it in his movie that he was doing.
Right. But still. So how long are we going to be mad at him is my question.
I agree.
But
Judd obviously...
But how long?
Thinks it was wrong.
Well,
he thinks that it's unforgivable. That's Judd Apatow's...
No, it's...
It's set. It's
set. Yeah,
no masturbating for the chicks at work is wrong, Jessica, right?
Oh my! On that same vein, right, with forgiveness and stuff, the Oscars aren't going to have a host for the first time, I think, in 30 years.
Yeah, what are they going to do?
Because of this whole Kevin Hart thing. How do you guys think Kevin didn't handle that right? Do you think he should have showed a little more, just said another, just one more I'm sorry, and just went on with it?
Fuck that. Can I cuss?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Fuck it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I say fuck that.
Yeah.
He did, he said he was sorry. He already said he was sorry. How far are you going to keep digging into people's past? I feel like, what is it, the Oscars?
Yeah.
Oscars, this was, their popularity was down to zero. This was just something to bring them back up and, popular.
Yeah, they had the worst ratings of all time in their history last year.
So them doing this whole thing and finding something with Kevin Hart, it only put them in the limelight, and is what I think is what they wanted.
Right. What do you? How do you feel?
I feel like we're in a point in society where no one wants anyone else to win, and I'm getting to this point where I think. Two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
Maybe he wasn't 100% smooth on how he went about it. That could be true. I'm not saying it is. But maybe it's true that we should allow people to have growth in their life that are in the public eye and not just always condemn. But then the other thing is also it should be every individual's job to want to elevate their thoughts and ideas and grow as a person, and I think that is whether people get accused or the accusers, and two things can be true.
Right, absolutely.
Like Liam Neeson saying the thing about my friend got raped and I wanted to kill and I walked around looking for black guys. He's just not going to win with that conversation.
Right.
Well, it's just a feeling, too. When I came back from the Air Force and being overseas in Iraq and I'm getting mortared every week, then I had to, there was a bit of discrimination that I had to fight within myself.
Right. And I think I think it's like Elizabeth Warren, and this is the one where I get kind of weirded out about when she did the DNA test, and then President Trump calls her Pocahontas, and I don't mean to be all lectury like
no,
but and it should be our job to awaken ourselves and not rely on other people to teach us, people of color. That should be on us, not them, and fair enough. But then on the other hand, my grandma was like a quarter Indian. I think my great grandfather was Indian. Yeah. And it doesn't. You look at me and you're like, what the fuck? And I don't go around saying I'm Indian, but I do have pride in my grandmother was born in a fucking covered wagon. They were dirt poor that, and she, my dad was the last of 10 kids. But the whole point is. Yeah. like, how are we going to have a conversation if everyone's angry?
Yeah.
But two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
Everyone should be angry.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, where are we going to fucking mend it?
Right.
How's that going to happen?
What's so weird about the Liam Neeson thing is I don't think anybody asked him that specific. The only thing he did wrong was he said what he thought. Like, you know, like the thing he did, the thought isn't wrong.
Yeah.
I don't believe in thought police. I feel like you said, if there's something inside you that you got to work out, there's nothing wrong with that. But he just made a mistake in sharing it the way he did. I think that's the
How
mistake.
did he share it?
Well, he just shared it by saying, like, you know, I went around looking for any black guy.
Who did he say it to?
An interviewer who I guess she was asking him how he channels rage, and he takes himself back to this time when he was in his 20s, and his friend told him that she was raped, and he said, was he black? And she said, yeah, he was black. And
Yeah,
he's
he
like,
didn't
I'm
need
gonna
to
go
say that.
around looking for a black guy. I was waiting for some black bastard to come out of a pub. He said black bastard, but I get, you know what I'm saying? I get the rage. I get what he's saying in that. This is rage. You know,
But he could have just left it at a dude.
some dude. Yeah, exactly. But he was waiting for, he was saying he was going specifically to black areas, waiting for a black dude to try him because he had a kosh, like a stick, and he was going to beat him to death with it if somebody, not necessarily a rapist, just any dude started talking crap to him or trying him, he was going to try to pick a fight. And it didn't happen, though. He didn't do anything to anybody. He walked around, nobody bothered him. And then, nothing happened. The only thing that happened was he shared it. You know what I mean?
Right.
That was his mistake.
When I was watching that, I could totally see everyone's point of view, and I think everyone has, to a certain extent, has a valid point of view.
Right.
And I think he was trying to say I had to check myself and
He started by apologizing. I mean, that was he was like, I'm ashamed to say it, but I went around.
It's like,
Okay,
I think it's a white entitled guy, old man that sits up there and says, thinks to themselves, maybe my words will fix everything too. So I feel like, I'm totally serious. It's like those kids that were at the Lincoln Memorial with the Indian gentleman, and
it's not that kid's fault. He had a slappable face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wait, somebody slapped that kid?
No, but you want to. You want to.
But to me, that's hilarious. To me, when I look at that, I'm like, okay, the black Israelites, I think that's what they call themselves. You have the Indian fella, and you have these obnoxious, stupid fucking. I am a mother of teenage boys, so it's kind of like fuck those boys.
That's where they are in their time, in their life.
Teenage boy, someone did nice things and went and visited his grandmother. Like, keep an eye on that motherfucker, because they are sneaky little fucks. But to me, when I watch it like day 2 and day 3, it's like I didn't react about it. I started thinking, what is the one thing that all 3 of these groups, the Indian fella, the black Israelites, and those boys, what is the through line of that? And to me, it's like the through line is they're fucking men, whether they're old, young, angry, a different color. They're all men posturing with themselves, like chest bumping themselves. That's the through line, and that's. It's like that's what needs to be changed, you know what I mean? And
is there any of that in the well, let's go specific to females in comedy community. Is there any? I know that Monique and Whoopi Goldberg just had like a spat, like
Did
a
they?
beef. Yeah, they had it out. Well, Monique has been kind of combative with a lot of people recently because of her Netflix thing and how she handled it. And then I believe it was Whoopi said something about she should let me school her. She should like pretty much like I was before you, let me school you on how to conduct yourself in business. And what Monique's thing, she called her the help. Then she would reply by saying Whoopi's the help, because what Whoopi was going to school her on was free promotion. Like, cause the whole beef started with Lee Daniels. This is before Netflix. Lee Daniels and Oprah wanted Monique to promote the movie that she was in for them for free, to do the promotional tour. And she was like, no, forget that. I got I feel like I should be getting paid to do this work. You know what I mean? And they didn't want to pay her. And then I think that kind of helped trickle into the Netflix deal, because now you're in a certain position in this community and society, right? So we can kind of try to take advantage of it.
Well, let's be real, too. In comedy, how much shit do we do for free?
Well, yeah. I mean, but do you feel like there's a certain point in your career? Like, at what,
I don't know. I'd like to get there.
If it's a female
I'd like
thing,
to get there.
But like, maybe when you win an Academy Award, do you now deserve?
Yeah, but she got paid to do the movie.
That's
right?
true, right?
So now I think once you do the movie, part of that is doing press, and advertising, right? Isn't that a part of it? You've already been paid to do the movie.
Well, I can see both sides on that.
You want the
I can see like where Monique is like,
both
fuck
things
this
right?
shit. And she has my heart on that. And I can
feel you.
also see where the filmmakers were like, there ain't that many roles around for women your age, so fucking get in
See,
line.
that's the problem. See, that's when the
So I see it from
negotiator
both
starts
points
looking
of
at
view.
leverage like that. Oh, let me take advantage of this person's position. And so that's wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's where it's like, oh, that's dirty. That's dirty
And
business.
were they paying the men on that movie to go promote?
Oh, that's
Oh,
too.
that would make it. Now, if they weren't paying anybody, I'm fine with it.
Right.
If they were paying men,
Who knows what the truth
That
is?
would
but
piss
yeah,
me off.
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Because
Yeah.
even in comedy, like if you go into a club, unless you're a huge superstar as a woman, you're probably going to get paid less than men for sure.
it's
Oh,
so
my
fucked up.
God.
That's
yeah.
true.
But that that's like any business.
When you say get paid less than men, you mean for the same headliner spot?
For sure.
Minus,
For
not, like
sure,
no door deal,
yeah.
just the
Or
what
it's
the straight
easier
up pay
for a
is.
man
That's
to
crazy.
move up and have value in certain ways.
Oh my
I know
God.
there's some guy comics that say, well, women get, are lifted up earlier because they're women, and it's like, you know what? Go fuck yourself.
Man.
Yeah.
So as women who've been working hard at this for a while, do you see that at all though? Like not girls, young women in comedy who come up through the ranks maybe for other for maybe because they're beautiful. You don't see that at all.
When I was starting out, that was the biggest hole for me personally to climb out of, because I came as
People thought that she's just some
I
pretty
came
girl.
as a stripper. I started doing comedy, and then one time I was stripping, and a couple comics came in, and it was my turn to go on stage. Did I ever tell you that?
No.
Yeah, and it was like, otherwise I couldn't work anymore, and I'd done open mics with these guys, and it was one guy in particular. I didn't know the other guys, and I had to just fucking go up there and shake my titties. And I picked "Meat Is Murder" was my favorite song, and I remember by the Smiths.
Oh my God.
And I remember I got off stage and I had to go serve them drinks, and the other guys.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
it was really a humiliating thing. But this is what's awesome about people, and this is what's awesome about comedy. The other guys had their hands all over the other chicks and trying to get it on me, and that guy was like, no, leave this chick alone. And that guy never told anybody else that he had saw me at a strip club. Like I saw him a week later at the Improv.
Right.
Never brought it up.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's how comedy is to me, and how I was brought in on comedy.
Yeah.
At the time I was at the Comedy Store, it was fucking like Kinnison and Mooney, and it was bananas. There was a lot of craziness there. There was a lot of drugs. But if you were one of the fellas, you were one of the fellas. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the way to become one of the fellas is someone's giving you shit, and you recognize they're not just giving me shit because I'm a girl. They're going to give everybody shit.
Right.
And, you got to hit it back. And all you have to do is hit it back verbally one time, and you're in.
Yeah.
And that's the great equalizer in comedy. That's what's awesome about comedy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It tells the truth. You get on that stage, and I
Yeah.
mean,
Or how
all
about
that,
the idea of this? This is when Bill Hicks, he was there, to be a stripper, and at 19 years old, and within a year, be, walking amongst people that were some of the most out of the box thinkers in our country.
Right.
That's fucking pretty cool about comedy.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? That's the most amazing thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why the Liars Club too, though, is perfect because we balance each other out. She's super
Right.
hot, and then I'm not, and then but together
Right.
we're the perfect combo.
Absolutely. On the podcast, you guys have a guest format, or is it you talk about pop culture? Or
Well, the Liars Club is what we do is we have two of our comedy friends on. I've only said this a million times. We have two of our comedy friends on, and we ask them to tell two stories. One is a lie and one is the truth. And then we try to figure out which one the lie is. And it's so fucked up because sometimes you'll be like, that for sure is a lie. lie.
And then it's
and
true.
it's something
Yeah.
really messed up. Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You got to come do it sometime.
Yeah,
Oh, I'd
for
love
sure.
to.
Please
man.
do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Who you guys had on there so far?
We've had Bert Kreischer.
Oh my
We've had
gosh.
Jackie Cation.
Yeah.
We've had Tom Rhodes.
Whoa.
We've had Kyle
Golly.
Kyle
Dunnigan. We've had
You're not gonna have me on your show.
Yeah, we are.
That was a freaking.
No, we've also had like who did we have recently that we have
Andrew?
our Andrew Rose was on it. He's our producer. But we also had like Stephen Fury.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
Stephen's
So
great.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Fury did it? When did Fury
I
do
thought
it?
he did it.
No, he's doing the show.
Oh, he's doing the live show at the Ice House.
Ooh, that's what's
No,
on the
but we had
15th?
Frank.
The live show.
We had Frank
Oh.
Castillo.
Frank Castillo,
Frank
we had
Castillo,
on
yeah,
there.
yeah.
It's really, and I had some old friends from like we had Johnny Hardwick who did the voice, did one of the voices on King of the Hill.
He was Dale on
Oh,
King of the Hill.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Isn't that
goodness.
cool?
He does comedy as well, or is he just a voice actor? Oh,
No, he started out. I've known him since my 20s. He started out doing comedy,
Yeah.
doing stand up.
Yeah, he was a really nice, cool guy, too.
Yeah.
And then Mark Brazil, I really like that guy.
Mark Brazil, the
Brazil.
creator of the '70s Show. I started
Oh,
out with
yeah.
him. He started out in San Diego doing comedy.
That's so crazy what
Yeah.
people's lives taken, where their careers taken.
Yeah.
Was there anybody, out of curiosity, Felicia, that you thought was like a killer when you met him, like early in your career? You're like, oh, and then they just quit comedy. Like, did that ever happen where you're like, what?
That had to have happened.
Oh, there was a girl when I first started doing comedy, and I'm so sorry I can't remember her name.
Judy Tenuta.
She used to go out with this comic named Teddy Bergeron, who was a Boston comic. They were boyfriend and girlfriend for a long time. I'm so sorry I can't remember her name. And she quit comedy and moved to like Spain and became a nun or something.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was like, what? And I was like, I want some of her jokes. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's all cool, but she should sell me some of her jokes. She was really funny.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Comedy to nuttery?
Right.
Comedy. I know. That is some fuckery right there. Right? Jesus Christ. But there is a woman named Pam Stone that was on the show Coach, where she played the awkward girl coach next to Craig T. Nelson's character. And she quit, but she lives in the South now and is a writer. And a lot of people have quit and come back, like Rich Scheidner, who's one of the greatest comics.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know who that is?
Absolutely, yeah.
He did so many Tonight shows. One of the, that's what's so cool about comedy too. I remember I first started at the Comedy Store, and guys like Rich Scheidner, who were untouchable at that point. I mean, those are guys that did the Tonight Show all the time, and it was hard. That was like the only thing that would elevate you. Sometimes would be just doing the Tonight Show. There really wasn't, unless you got an HBO Young Comedian special or something like that. And he quit a couple times to write, and then he came back, and then he quit for a long time.
Dang.
And then he recently came back like 4 or 5 years ago. And it's just so amazing. Margaret Cho goes out of her way sometimes to stop doing comedy for like 6 months and to work on something else. Because when you do it for, as the years add up, you have to challenge yourself. And sometimes the challenge to make your comedy better isn't just doing more comedy. It's doing other things so you can inform your comedy.
Wow.
Some people could say the same about you, Felicia.
All right, because I quit for 9 years because I had kids.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so, yeah.
Well, that's
and then
cool
she
how
came back.
it brings you it full circle, because you're like, wow, like you said, like people think that, I gotta get up 5 times a day, like in order to get better, but you're not. Like, even when I started comedy, I was 18. I had no information. Like, I was learning stage tricks.
Right.
I could understand how to maybe things to do on stage, like, put the mic stand behind you, like little things that can engage in theatrical tricks, engage an audience. But what I was talking about had no substance to it.
Well, that's an excellent point to bring up, because when I started at the Comedy Store, started doing comedy, and then was at the Comedy Store, the thing is, what do you think the average age of an audience is? 35?
Right.
35? If you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you in comedy you got to talk about what you know about. And for me, the only thing I really knew about was working a sex trade, was being a stripper. So for me, it was a bonus to go from being a stripper to being a comic because I had worked in an environment where I had to learn very quickly how to handle myself with men, being a stripper.
Absolutely.
But that totally helped my comedy because I could say to Mooney, "No, go fuck yourself," or you know what I mean? Yeah, no, I mean I'm not saying him in particular, but I could say
Paul Mooney quite a bit, right?
Right. Because one time when I first started out, I always got the 8 o'clock spot, and I said to Mitzi one day, because I was terrified of her, and I'm like, Mitzi, I can do a primetime spot. I swear to God. And then the next week, I had a spot after Paul Mooney, and I never fucking asked Missy Shore for anything ever again. Because I was all like, she would fuck with you. So, you know what I mean?
Oh, man.
But anyway, I didn't mean to get off on a fucking boring tangent like that. But if the average audience is 35 years old and you're younger, I used to get a lot of shit because I was one of the first women to be explicitly dirty.
Right.
But it was self-defense. I had nothing else to really talk about it. I'm not a college student. You know what I mean? I didn't, have any interest just other than comedy. Yeah. And so I
didn't realize I was talking to an agent. She was just kind of interested in me. We were just talking. She's from APA. She was just like, "Oh, how long you been doing comedy?" And I was like, 14 years, 32. She was like, "Oh, you're not burnt out yet?" I was like, "What?" Like, I didn't know that people burn out.
Oh, yeah.
Or that they just feel like, all right.
Never burnt out?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I've had ruts, like writing ruts and stuff like that. I think what helped me break through, like to make things fresh again every time I go on stage is I read Sid Caesar's book when he talked about, because he was a musician at first. He was a saxophonist. And he said, comedy's music, which you hear a lot, but he was saying that the audience is the instrument that you're trying to play. You're like how a host tunes them up, and it's like, oh, this is you're playing them like an instrument, and that made me like, oh, even though I'm doing these same, like, you go on the road, you're doing the same set, you're like, oh, I have to change the rhythm of the pattern, maybe based on what this room is tonight, and that made it fresh for me. Because I'm like, I'm just saying the same crap. I hate this. I don't know why things work from day to day, and that helped me like, oh, okay, every room is new again, you know. But I'm still having to find things like that to keep it fresh, but never.
Well, when I quit comedy, I was like super angry chick.
Oh yeah.
When you quit, you were angry?
Oh fuck yeah.
Angry at your husband?
Well, I was angry because for me, and I'm sorry I'm harping on the same topic matter, but comedy changed at the end of the 80s when alt comedy came in, right? And so because I had started so young and I was, people, workmates around me were 10 to 15 years older than me automatically. So I kind of got lumped into like old guy style of comedy. And so when the alt scene came out, I didn't fit that package because then you couldn't work the Comedy Store and the Improv. You were either at the Comedy Store or an improv comic. And the Comedy Store was like cowboys and Indians crazy, and the improv was like fucking
suits and ties.
Mullets and suits and ties and one earring.
Don't hate on the mullet.
Oh my goodness.
So it was just a different, situation,
So with both of you, do you think that, because like you were saying, like a Tonight Show, these things could launch you back in the day, right? Now, I don't know, are we in a place where those things don't necessarily matter, and is that better, like that people can reach an audience through their Instagram or whatever?
You don't need the Tonight Show.
You don't need it, yeah.
And I don't know that a lot of people are getting huge fan bases from the Tonight Show at all either. I mean, it looks good on your resume.
Right.
To say that I've done it.
Well, who do you show a resume to? Like, what does a resume do?
What is a resume?
As like in comedy. I mean,
as a comic, what is a resume?
Like, who do you? This is.
I mean, it helps you get booked at places.
Oh, got you. That's true too.
I think it's different. It's not harder now or easier now because you can create your own audience. The differences are if you had an act back in the day. Because people didn't have instant access to everything, you could ride on that act for a decade and not change anything. You know what I mean? And so, but because you didn't have as much control in your career, and and the only way to get something was very limited paths, like the Tonight Show or HBO Young Comedian Show.
Right.
So, and now you can do everything yourself. Your path can be anything it can be, but you're honestly working harder. Like it wasn't as it was harder work, like getting burnt out. Like I went through a 10-year period where I did literally 30 weeks a year on the road, 10 years on the road, and it was like Tuesday or Wednesday through Sunday.
Wow.
And like you would do like 10 weeks at a time, and you're doing it without a fucking ATM card and without a cell phone.
Right.
So that was harder, but you got, it tended to make your comedy lazy because now you have to burn through material.
Right.
Like I don't ever remember huge conversations in my circle, being the Comedy Store at that time, of people so eager to constantly be turning new material over, or maybe they just didn't talk about it in a way that's talked about now. Like you go now and the conversation is, even my age going in and all the door guys now and being like, hey Frank, I'm going to do this, and oh yeah, do that. And that part's different. So it's not that it's more or less work from doing comedy back in the day to doing it now, or less convenient and more convenient. But
you can definitely say, though, there's more avenues these days.
Oh, that's exactly right.
But there's also way more comics than there ever was.
Yes, it's more competition.
There's comics in every city. Every time I look at somebody that's coming up, I'm like, well, where the hell they come from? And I'm like, good for them, but I didn't even know they existed.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have all these different avenues, and it's like you have this spider web. You could go in any different direction, and I think that also harbors a lot of comics that are not great, that stay in it instead of moving on and maybe doing something on the production side.
Right. Well, I think because Jessica might be creeping up on getting burnt out, but I'm just saying, having been through the whole thing.
You think I'm getting burnt out?
I think when you start seeing the flaws in other comics and what they lack is you
I'm not even saying in particular.
I'm just saying that's when it can, and I'm not making a judgment because I totally went through I was fucking angry when I left. I never thought I was going to do comedy. I think again.
Jessica, compared to like the most of the door people, I don't know, like, because you're the most positive person out as far as that. I know you have to probably to fit in, to hang out.
Yeah.
You gotta like kind of get with that vibe in a sense, but they'll like, if you hang around door guys, like they're very much on that like judgmental.
They are. Yeah. I can't be around them all the time. That's why I do phones and stuff now. Yeah. Because I found myself getting into that, and it really did suck me into a bad place.
Oh yeah.
Where I'm just judging everybody. And I was like, I can't be doing this.
You can't be doing that, because once you have been around the block, you see that, hey, thank God we're all fucking different. Thank God. Thank God we're all not geniuses.
But I'm just saying,
if we were all geniuses, it would be even fucking worse, Jessica.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'm just saying, because of sheer numbers.
Right.
Because the odds are you're going to have a lot more that, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it weeds itself out, and I think the people that aren't bringing anything new to it serve their own purpose and serve, are going to function differently, but still have great lives. I mean, having seen people from that time, being that young, and seeing how people turned out later in life, they all have value. Like there was a guy named, but even the ones that you're like, why are they taking my stage time away? Like, I was that ugly person where I was fucking super angry. And you see at the end of it, they all serve a function. Maybe your function was just to be the genius's fucking solid right-hand man. And you know what? That guy has a good life.
Is that a Judd Apatow thing?
No, I'm not. No, not at all. No. Hilarious, though. Hilarious. But I'm saying everyone brings a value to it. I know, like, when I was in my 20s, I'd be like, like there was this comedian named Maureen Murphy, and she had done that.
Maureen?
I think her name was Maureen Murphy,
Yeah.
and she was originally from Australia. She was a cute blonde chick, very perky with a pixie haircut, and she
you
did
didn't judge her at all. Huh?
No. She was very cute. But she did the Tonight Show, and as she got into her 40s, I was all like, I remember one time I went to her house and I opened her refrigerator and she had just all cold creams for her face in the refrigerator, and I was all like, that fucking chick, and into myself, you know what I mean? And how did she get on the Tonight Show? Blah blah blah. Right?
Cold cream.
Oh, cream.
But you get to that place, and now I'm past what her age was, and now I see how many people I had judgment on, and I see how fucking cool they are, and how their path was just meant for a different thing. Not everyone can be the superstar.
I'm not even talking about necessarily people that I know. I'm just saying out there.
Right.
There's so many people in it. There's so many people.
Yeah.
So many, like there was a time, I mean, with podcasts and stuff like that, at least now you don't have to pitch your stuff to anybody. I hope a radio station would take your idea.
Right.
It's just like, I'm going to get my
that part's
stuff
pretty cool.
and just do it. And then if people latch onto it, then cool. Like I'll find my audience can find me, or I'll go out and try to find them.
But what is interesting is how also show business has shifted on comedy, because before, if you were a person before Robert Townsend that wanted to do other stuff other than comedy, people were like, you should just fucking do your comedy. Like, what the fuck is that about? Like, that's, what bullshit is that? Like, really? Film school? Are you fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it's come the other way. Like, because I remember being in a huge manager's office, and someone had, because you would send tapes to managers, and someone had put like a, nifty little press packet together. And I remember the manager opening up the big envelope, look in the press packet. I was all like, "That's pretty fucking cool."
Oh yeah, that's when the packets were
right.
paper.
And the manager was like, "If someone has a good press packet, you know what that says to me? Not funny." And threw it in the trash.
Oh
threw
my
it in
God.
the trash. Right?
Really?
Yes.
That dude probably followed up for the next 6 months and was like excited.
Look, like not everyone's meant to be the funniest guy, but sometimes maybe the guy that's not the funniest guy needs to organize the funny guy. You know what I mean? Like, that's might be their spot. And thank goodness for those guys.
Man, thank you.
We need one of those guys.
Yeah, fuck. I need a guy like that. I need a man so hard.
Well, Sean.
Really, man. Hey. Well, that's perfect because we about to, the show's almost over. So, I just playing. No, but thank you guys so much for joining us. I know we only got a couple minutes left, but where can people find you guys on social media and stuff?
I'm at Jess Wellington 2 on everything.
Yeah, the number 2.
The number 2.
Yeah.
Yes, please follow me. And we're at the Liars Club 1 on everything too, if you want to follow that.
All sick. And
you can follow me at Felicia Michaels all across the board. And I would like to say that on March 1st, fingers crossed, I made a feature-length documentary that won some prizes, and it's about comedy and perversion and all sorts of stuff, and Felipe Esparza's in it, and Joey Diaz is in it. But that'll probably be on Vimeo on demand starting March 1st. So,
March 1st. Heck yeah.
I'm very excited.
What's that called?
It's called Pervs.
Pervs.
Yeah, it won last year Best Feature Documentary at the La Femme International Film Festival.
Amazing.
So yeah, they've been very lucky with it.
March 1st, Vimeo. Check that out. And perfect. And I'm at Mr. Sean Grant on Instagram. What's it at Comedy Pop-Up?
Comedy Pop-Up or CPU Podcast, both.
Perfect. And we have does Comedy Pop-Up have anything coming up, Alex?
No, man.
All right.
Great shows. Check out all the shows.
Check out all the shows. You can go to comedypopup.com, right?
Yeah.
For the live shows. Look, listen, guys, thank you.